Have you ever wanted to say or do something, but you've chosen not to because in your head it didn't seem like it was worth it? Maybe you've heard the narrative, there's no point in me saying something because they're not going to listen anyway. Or there's no point in me saying something because it won't change anything. Or there's no point in me saying anything because it will make no difference. Now, if something isn't that important to you, then fair enough, don't say anything because it would be silly to move towards something that has no importance to you. But if it is important to you and you still choose not to say something based on how other people are going to react, then in that exact moment, what you're really doing is saying to yourself, I'm only going to stand up for what's important to me if other people are going to react in a way that I'm comfortable with. Or you're basically saying to yourself is that I'm only going to stand up for what's important to me if I get what I want out of it, if I get the outcome that I desire, if I win in this situation. So if you do have a very outcome dependent mindset, which is basically trying to preempt people's reactions, or maybe you want to make sure that you get the thing that you want, then this can have a big impact on you in 3 different ways. Number 1, you will start depending on trying to read other people's minds with 100% accuracy all the time, which by the way is completely impossible, before you actually give something a go. Number 2, you start conditioning your own brain to start thinking how they react is more important than what I say. Now let me rephrase that in layman's terms, you're basically saying how they react is more important than my thoughts and my feelings. And number 3, you train your own brain to only stand up for yourself when you believe that you're going to be able to change somebody else. In layman's terms, what you're really doing is belittling what's important to you based on a measurement system of something else external to you that you simply cannot control. Now, there are so many situations of what I've described that this could be relevant. Maybe it's simply talking to your boss about the way that they speak to you. Maybe it's talking to your partner about the way that they speak to you. Maybe it's simply voicing an uncomfortable opinion in a meeting. Maybe you feel that you're being interrupted or maybe overlooked, or maybe it's just simply about the way that somebody in your office is communicating with you. There are so many different things, but fundamentally, if it's important to you, by not saying anything, what you're effectively doing is disrespecting yourself and disrespecting your own needs. Now, in any of these situations, more than often, people end up remaining muted, or they end up just not saying anything. And they are normally the situations that by the time they get home to the partners or they get home to the friends or family, whatever the case may be, they will tell anybody that is willing to listen about how unfair they were treated, how the boss is an arsehole, how the partner's a dick, all these different things just because they haven't spoken up. Now, it's very easy then to slip into the mindset that you're not able to do this thing because of how this other person is. It's like going into a blame game. I can't be who I want to be because of this person. I can't say what I want to say because so-and-so is doing this. The moment we start talking about we can't do this thing because this other person is this other thing, we're massively disempowering ourselves. And here's the irony behind it, is that when we're so busy blaming the other person and directing and projecting our anger at the other person, more than often the person that we're most frustrated with is ourselves, because it just means that we've just sat there, not taken action on something that we feel is important to us, but it's so much easier to blame the other person because by doing that, you don't need to look within. Now, this is one of those topics that I do get a lot of people pushing back on when they say, well, what is the point? It's not going to change anything. I'm just going to piss other people off. Other people are going to think I'm this, that, or the other. If it isn't going to change anything, then it's just wasted energy. These are the types of narratives that I get back from people when I talk in this particular way. So let me use an analogy. Now, this is a made up analogy, but it sometimes lands differently with people. Imagine you've got a woman who is in a situation of domestic violence. Now, I'm just saying woman just for the sake of this story, but I do know that obviously some men end up in domestic violence situations as well. But just for the essence of this, say a woman is being beaten by her husband. Now, during this time that she's being beaten by him, she has bruises all down her arms. Maybe she gets the odd black eye. Maybe she has bruises on her stomach. Maybe she's got some internal damage. And during all this time, when she's with her friends, she doesn't speak to them about it. She doesn't tell anybody. She wears shades to cover the bruises on her face. She's always got long sleeve tops on to hide the bruises on her arms. She never shows off part of her body, maybe in a bikini, where you can see any other blemish on her body whatsoever. She puts on a really good front around her friends, acts all happy because she's embarrassed and ashamed around what is going on behind closed doors. She doesn't tell anybody. She doesn't take any photos. You get the picture here. Fundamentally, she has absolutely zero evidence that this thing is going on unless she physically told somebody, in which in that marriage she hasn't told a bean. Now, fast forward a couple of years later and she decides that she's had enough and she's going to get out of this marriage, and she decides to leave this guy. Now, when she finally gets out of the marriage, she spends some time working on herself and she starts building her own confidence, and then she starts being open and honest with her friends around what's really been going on. And she starts explaining what she went through, the trauma, the bruises, the torture that she went through. But nobody can believe it because she hadn't told a soul, and meanwhile she had absolutely no physical evidence that it happened at all. So fundamentally, what you've really got is her word against his. So the question here is, if she then decides to go to court to try and prosecute her ex, would this be the right thing or the wrong thing to do? Now, I get a mixture of different replies on this. Well, it depends if she's going to win, and it depends how much energy it's going to take, blah, blah, blah. For me, all of that is irrelevant. For me, absolutely, she goes to court and she fights for the right thing. The chances of her winning in court are actually pretty small because she's physically got no photos. She hasn't got any witnesses until after she'd left the marriage. She doesn't have any doctor's records. She doesn't have any hospital records. He's nice and sweet to everybody else in the world. She acted smiley and happy to everybody else in the world. It is literally her word against his. Is the chance of her winning high? Probably not. But is it the right thing for her to do? Absolutely. And I'll tell you why. Because in that moment, she is giving herself so much more worth. She's given herself so much more respect. And regardless of the outcome, in that moment, she is standing up for that woman that she didn't stand up for before. Somebody's actually taking a stand around what's right and wrong. So if it is her truth and it is the real thing, even by going to court and losing that court case, it's still going to be a huge thing for her to actually have been standing in her own power regardless of the outcome. In that moment, she's likely to feel powerful. She's likely to feel scared, but she's overcoming that fear by still doing the right thing. She's respecting herself. She's looking after herself. She's standing up for the woman that she didn't stand up for before. Now that, to me, is a win. Now that's an extreme story, and I do understand why sometimes an extreme story seems to be what actually gets people to resonate with what I'm saying. But if you take that situation and then you plonk it into something like a business meeting, a conversation with your partner, maybe an awkward conversation with a parent, or any of these situations that we're faced with in life, when we do the thing that is right for something that's important to us, regardless of the outcome or regardless of how they're going to react, then absolutely it's very empowering for you, because what you're reminding yourself is what's important to me is going to be worth standing up for. Now, as a final thought, many people seem to think that if they're going to stand up for themselves, it's going to result in conflict. And if they're going to result in conflict, they're going to have to get aggressive. Actually, standing up for yourself doesn't need conflict, and it certainly doesn't need aggression. You can still be very assertive, you can still be very direct, but do it in a very integral way. I've literally helped hundreds and hundreds of people over the last few years doing exactly that. Opening their mind to actually communicating in a powerful way that isn't led by aggression or isn't actually enticing conflict. But in essence, fundamentally, if you are not standing up for the things in your life internally that are very important to you, whether it's your thoughts or your feelings, all based on external factors that you simply can't control, then for the reasons that I've mentioned in this video, how much damage that's going to do to your confidence. But of course, that's just what I think. I want to know what you think. Let me know in the comments below. And as always, if you've enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to my YouTube channel, and hit that notification bell to get all future content. And other than that, have a good day. Cheers.